As the past slowly fades away, Belop feels a powerful energy enveloping him. The Jin before him is no longer the ordinary companion he once knew. The sword in his hand shines like the sun, radiant and full of might. This scene sends shivers through the crowd. For this is the righteous aura that only those who understand the secrets can awaken. Instantly, the trainer feels the urgent need to intervene, otherwise, Jin will face peril. But Jin coldly barks, "Don't move, I command you. Everything you see and hear today must remain sealed in silence." At this moment, Belop still harbors hope that Jin is merely jesting. "Do you truly wish for this? Yet?" Jin's icy retort extinguishes all hope within him. "Come at me, give it your all and fight desperately." Belop grits his teeth, resolute. "You, young master, have made a grave mistake." Without hesitation, he unleashes his strength, charging at Jin like a tempest. Jin raises his sword to parry, but in an instant, his blade shatters like paper. He hastily retreats, thoughts racing through his mind. Belop, with his overwhelming power, is surprisingly formidable. Although Jin understands his strength, he is astounded that Belop can evoke such righteous energy. With one strike, Belop continues his assault, but Jin suddenly erupts with an unimaginable speed. An arrow cuts through the wind, striking the hilt of Belop's sword. The intense force numbs his hand, making it impossible to grip the sword tightly. In that fleeting moment, Jin appears behind Belop, tightening his grip around his neck. Despite Belop's struggles, every effort proves futile. Yet, moments later, Jin releases Belop, allowing him to collapse onto the ground. Panting, "Did you not promise to fight to the death? Why do you stop? Do you think it is amusing to toy with others?" Belop screams in a fit of rage. "Why treat me this way?" Jin kneels down, his expression complex. "This troubles me as well. But one thing I am certain of is that only when you become strong can you protect the weak. You are weaker than I am. And yet, kinder than I am. While I deeply admire your kind-heartedness, mere goodwill cannot survive in this hell. Belop, I hope you can grow strong enough to safeguard your kind heart alongside me. Together with everyone here, I apologize for treating you so harshly." Upon hearing this, Belop cried like a child. At that moment, the maids arrived with lunch. Noticing that the training had not yet concluded, they asked if they should return later. Jin gestured for them to bring it over immediately. At this time, Belop resembled a sulking and lonely little wife. "Young master, for lunch today, I kindly ask you to fetch it yourself." Jin smiled warmly. "All right. Today I will bring your lunch as well." When Jin's father heard this, he burst into hearty laughter. So this is the faith that Jin defends. Though he must tread the path of a tyrant, he shall also shelter the weak. Thus, his father made an immediate decision. He wished to test the worth of the faith Jin upheld, commanding him to undertake his first mission. In another realm, Jin, the 15-year-old boy, had officially entered the supreme training class, embarking on the journey to become a level 3 knight. As he became a trainee in this elite program, he was no longer permitted to wield a wooden sword, compelled to seek a weapon that suited him. At this moment, Luna, with a confident smile, volunteered to assist him to select an extraordinary sword for Jin. However, when Jin beheld it, he was left in shock. Luna had drawn out an 1.8-meter-long butcher's knife, proudly introducing it as the weapon she had wielded in her childhood. Named Berserker's Slaughter, Jin hesitated. "Thank you for choosing a sword for me. But this sword, it seems ill-suited for me." Luna's expression flickered with disappointment. "It's all right. I was just teasing you." Yet, her eyes could not hide the sadness. She then revealed a special sword, a royal blade that only Jin was capable of wielding. Upon seeing the sword, Jin's eyes immediately sparkled. It was none other than the twin sword of the housemaster, Bradamante, a weapon once belonging to the first master, the strongest of them all. This was a weapon he had paid dearly to possess. He never expected Luna would gift it to him, for Bradamante and Barisada were the most perfect weapons to unleash the power of Chi. Had he chosen it himself, surely his siblings would have vehemently opposed him. But now, as Luna bestowed this sword upon him, Jin felt perplexed, unsure of how to respond. Luna smiled brightly, saying, "What need is there for us to discuss repayment? You are the little brother I cherish most." That night, Jin returned to his room, joyfully sharing with Urake about Bradamante. Unexpectedly, Urake doused him with a cold splash of reality, stating that one must reach a Chi level of 3 stars to unleash the power of Bradamante. While Jin currently only possessed 2 stars, only able to mimic a few techniques awakened by Jiangqin, Jin stubbornly declared that he would soon attain a Chi level of 3 stars. He would master it swiftly. "Arrogant one, heed my words. Barisada and Bradamante. These swords cannot be wielded lightly. A chi level of 3 stars is merely the minimum standard. Until you reach 5 stars, they can only serve as ordinary swords. Urake, with a stern tone, cautioned Jean, but Jean could not accept this. He brushed Urake's hand aside. Then I shall achieve chi level 5 stars within a year. Is that acceptable? Urake was so furious his face changed color. Grabbing Jean by the head. Do you think training chi is as easy as eating? I say this for your own good. Jean hurriedly nodded, but his hand secretly reached for Urake's favorite comic, intending to tear it apart. Seeing this, Urake immediately panicked. Please, put the book down. Speak properly. Just as the two were bickering, Jilly suddenly burst in, informing Jean that teacher Galen had assigned him his first mission and instructed Jean to go immediately. Without delay, Jean hurried off to carry out the task. This mission was to scout the southern region of the Nvong nation, accompanied by 10 other junior trainees. However, that area was perilously close to the territory of the Beastmen, a challenging task that should certainly not be entrusted to novices like them. Furthermore, the members were only of average capability, and Bellup was particularly unstable. It seemed as though someone was deliberately orchestrating this situation. Jean couldn't help but wonder if his confrontation with Bellup had reached his father's ears, leading to this intensely challenging assignment. If that is the case, I shall prove to him just how steadfast my faith is. The scene shifted as Jean swiftly divided the team into two, preparing for the search mission. Just then, Bellup rushed in, a look of panic on his face, bringing dire news to Jean. Team 2 has been attacked. We know there are 3 human enemies, but with only 3 of them, they wouldn't dare to touch the Lan Qi family. Clearly, they must have more accomplices lurking about. Jean ordered the 2 members of the first team to quickly return to the camp, preparing for any eventuality. As for you, go immediately to reinforce them, though we do not yet know who the enemy is. Once they dare to invade the Lan Qi clan, Jean will not let them escape unpunished. Soon after, Jean noticed fresh bloodstains on the ground. From the evidence left behind, it was apparent Team 2 had clashed with the enemy here before they had to flee. Following the footprints, there was only a single enemy. At the same time, Jean discovered a bloodied bandage, indicating that a member of Team 2 had tended to a wound here before being detected by the enemy and hastily retreating westward. Jean issued his orders. Bellup followed closely, pursuing the enemy while returning to camp to report the emergency situation. In the course of the chase, they finally located a member of Team 2 in a forest, but there were no signs of Misa, and they also discovered another assailant. Jean unsheathed his dagger, ready to confront. Bellup immediately closed his eyes, preparing to strike the enemy on the left after 2 seconds. It was clear. Jean wrapped his energy around the foe, sharpening his weapon and making it more lethal, while simultaneously minimizing his own presence. The enemy silently charged to the right, completely unaware, and was instantly pierced through the throat. At the same moment, Bellup appeared behind another enemy, but he quickly reacted, blocking Bellup's lethal strike. However, Jean did not hesitate to draw his sword and thrust it fiercely into the man's back. Immediately, Jean stepped on him. The surviving members of the team, upon seeing Jean arrive, reported that Misa had been captured by them. At this moment, the man pleaded for his life, but Jean coldly presented him with 2 choices. Tell me all the information you have, and I will only kill 1 person if you say nothing. Everyone connected to you will pay the price. The man faltered, caught in an inner struggle, but upon hearing Jean invoke the name Lin Khe as assurance, he chose to yield. Please do not harm my family. We are the Jin Chaola organization. At the mention of this name, Jean's pupils constricted. In his past life, they were a brutal terrorist organization that had slaughtered the entire Nvong nation, their sole purpose being to elevate their king to the ruler of the world. Mei Xia was currently being escorted by them. At the entrance, around 24-star dancers and mages awaited. After gathering the necessary information, Jean swiftly ended the life of that man, commanding everyone to return to the camp to rest, and then to approach the clan for support. Meanwhile, Jean did not hesitate, resolutely determined to save Mei Xia alone. The surrounding students immediately intervened, saying, "It's too dangerous for you to go alone. The enemy is numerous, all at 4-star strength. Young master, you need not risk your life for us." Yet Jean remained steadfast in his decision. "I am a descendant of the Lin Khe clan. I cannot stand by and let this happen," he asserted fiercely, his eyes blazing with fire. "Moreover, I am stronger than you can imagine. Should you choose to resist, I will not hesitate to act." He then handed over command to Bellup, the strongest among them, meticulously instructing him on every detail before departing. Jean plunged into the journey to rescue Mei Xia alone, his heart filled with hope that it was not too late. The enemy consisted of about 24-star dancers, while Jean possessed only 3-star swordsmanship, 4-star magical power, and 3-star aura, though he had rapidly advanced. Would it be enough to withstand this storm? Yet, to confront such a multitude of foes alone was indeed a terrifying challenge. The magical power coalesced into a fierce wind swirling around Jean's hands. Immediately, he channeled his strength, slamming down onto the ground, creating a celestial web to trace the enemy's tracks. Before long, Jean pinpointed their direction, approaching a nearby meadow. Without hesitation, Jean threw himself into the relentless chase. Suddenly, a dagger-like arrow shot toward him. Jean reacted in the blink of an eye, using sealing magic to alter the arrow's trajectory. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, 3 foes surged from the grass, attacking like feral beasts. The power of sealing magic in Jean's hands erupted, infused with a wild determination. His arm swung, conjuring a sharp blade of mystical energy that instantly pierced the heart of the man charging at him. But unfortunately, another enemy barreled toward Jean like a whirlwind. Jean drew his sword, delivering a razor-sharp strike that sent the foe flying away. The mage standing at the rear was no less dangerous, gathering a fierce flame, ready to attack. "Stay away," he shouted to his comrades. In an instant, a massive fireball hurtled toward Jean, tightening its grip around his arm. The swordsman beside him chuckled with satisfaction, believing he had subdued Jean. Yet, he could not fathom that Jean stood firm, unyielding like an immovable mountain. He countered immediately, his sword slicing fiercely into the body of the foe. Flames erupted from the sorcerer's hands, but Jean gripped the fiery strands tightly. Pivoting with strength, the fire from the sorcerer's hands fell away, and Jean swiftly surged forward. Realizing that fire magic could not touch Jean, the foe quickly initiated weapon magic. Sharp ice shards shot forth, targeting Jean directly. Suddenly, the pendant around his neck blazed with light, forming a shield of green luminescence that halted all incoming ice projectiles. Beneath the terrified gaze of the elder, an arrow flew straight, guiding him to his eternal rest. Jean swiftly followed the trail they left behind. At last, Jean arrived at the stronghold of Jinjiro. He cleverly created a noise to divert their attention. Instantly, the fire magic in his hands ignited, incinerating the entire forest. Then, he summoned wind magic, whipping the sea of flames into the enemy camp, creating a magnificent spectacle. Amidst the chaos swirling like a pot of porridge, Jean stealthily infiltrated within. The enemy leader quickly commanded the sorcerers to conjure water magic to extinguish the flames. But alas, the sorcerers found themselves powerless against the raging inferno. He also suspected that someone was deliberately setting the fire. As he ordered his subordinates to search, Jean silently approached from behind like a ghost. In the next moment, Jean quickly dealt with the bald man and obtained the key to the prison cell. Not long after, he discovered a mysterious entrance to an underground chamber. Just as he predicted, Misa was being held captive there. But the moment he helped Misa untie her and prepared for their escape, a powerful tremor suddenly crashed down from above. At that moment, Misa suddenly and seriously urged Jean that if danger arose, he should abandon her. She could not allow Jean to sacrifice himself here. Jean softly replied, "Let's get out first, and then we'll figure it out." As they stepped outside, a horrifying scene unfolded before their eyes. Corpses lay scattered, gazing upon the wounds on the bodies. Jean immediately recognized the mark of the beastman. Just then, thunderous footsteps echoed nearby. A colossal wolf man appeared, its eyes gleaming with murderous intent. Before Misa could even utter a word to tell Jean to go ahead, he knocked her unconscious to protect her. After ensuring Misa's safety, Jean rose, his gaze resolute as he faced the bloodthirsty wolf. "Hey, kid, you were the one who set the fire, weren't you?" "Indeed, I am Jean Lencade, son of Xilong Lencade. And what is your name?" At this, a wicked smile spread across the wolf's face. It turned out to be the Lencade clan. The White Wolf tribe was born solely to bring death. Their average strength reached at least 6 stars. The ancestors of the Lencade clan had once slain the divine beast they revered, Harbi. Because of this, the White Wolf tribe held an unending grudge against Lencade. Jean could not escape the pursuit of the wolf. The only way was to fight with his life on the line. The demon wolf let out a loud laugh and charged into the attack. The massive hammer slammed into the ground, creating a deep crater 2.5 meters wide. Jean barely managed to evade this strike. But the demon wolf gave him no chance to breathe. It swung the hammer for a second time, aiming directly at Jean's face. Jean hurriedly raised his long sword to block the blow. Yet, the immense force made his arm tremble. After another round of combat, Jin, realizing that he could hardly defeat the demon wolf solely with strength. He knew he still had one trump card, the pendant that Luna had gifted him, along with magic and courage. However, Jin did not want to waste the pendant in such a dire situation. But now, he had no choice left. The damage from magic could do nothing to the demon wolf. Furthermore, if the clan sent someone to investigate, his use of clan magic would be discovered. Therefore, he had no choice but to use the guiding energy to release the sacred sword. But Urake had once sternly warned him against that. Before the guiding energy reached 5 stars, it must not be used to resurrect the arrow. Otherwise, a terrible explosion of guiding energy would occur, potentially taking lives. But in the current perilous situation, Jin had no other choice. The demon wolf's attacks grew increasingly brutal, and Jin felt his endurance waning. At this moment, the demon wolf seemed to have victory firmly in its grasp. Is your sword strong enough? Although that black sword did not entirely fit the spirit of your clan. It raised the hammer high, leaping like a storm, then struck down fiercely towards Jin, as if to end the life of the Lenkade heir. In that moment of life and death, Jin struggled to remember the sensation of awakening the sword, channeling guiding energy into its body. Awaken, Mant. Just as the demon wolf's attack was about to land, the world suddenly plunged into darkness. A wave of dark, furious energy enveloped Jin. The demon wolf felt its vision darkening. At that instant, a chain of lights emerged from countless shadows, sealing away its senses. And right after that, a gray figure appeared in Jin's hand. Its light immediately dissipated, leaving only the powerful guiding energy radiating forth. The demon wolf collapsed, utterly exhausted. It died without understanding what Jin had done. But just as Jin defeated the demon wolf, the guiding energy began to explode. He felt as if he were about to be consumed by the guiding energy. Unable to control the power surging within him, the wave of guiding energy erupted from his body like a storm, transforming into a demon, continuously invading his mind. At this very moment, a shadow appeared before Jin. You bastard, kid, I warned you. Awakening the sword through force comes at a steep price. Are you just going to sit here and wait for death? Get up, did I not tell you what to do? Jin bit down hard on his lip to stay alert. Instantly, he prepared to unleash his guiding energy. In the past, he had always been affected by the surrounding energy, unable to complete the release. But now, it was the only way to save himself. After numerous attempts, Jin finally dispersed the guiding energy. Without a moment's hesitation, he stood up, determined to take Misa home. But suddenly, a noise came from the side. Seeing a figure emerge from the ruins, Jin immediately thought it was Jinjiro's heir. He swiftly drew his sword, causing the person to cower in fear. I am the heir of the Built clan. It turned out, this was the rescued target Jin had been searching for in this mission. Jin wondered why he had been kidnapped here. Sam explained that he had followed his girlfriend here. But the strange thing was, his girlfriend had died 2.5 years ago. Yet, the person he saw looked exactly like her. Jin immediately guessed that this was the bizarre trick of the shape-shifting witch. Buble. This was the second time they had met since leaving the Storm City. Was there a connection? Jin decided to seek an opportunity to discover the truth himself. The next day, as soon as he returned home, Jin felt a chill run down his spine. Turning around, he pretended to greet Urake with friendliness. Urake, in a fit of rage, bit down hard on Jin's hand. Without hesitation, Jin forcefully threw him against the wall. If you have something to say, just say it plainly. Urake shouted furiously. Have you lost your mind? Or is your brain waterlogged? Jumping around like a wildcat. How many times have I warned you not to awaken the divine sword on your own? Or you'll pay the price. Instantly, Urake transformed, grabbing Jin and shaking him violently. You are the only one who made a pact with Sadare. In any situation, do not recklessly risk your life. Just as Jin was about to retort, he was interrupted by Urake's shouting. What is the pendant around her neck for? Why don't you use it? But Jin could only grip the pendant tightly, his heart heavy as he thought about the powerful enemies that might arise in the future. If used, it would indeed be a pity. Hearing this, Urake felt struck by lightning. His anger nearly drove Jin out of here. Jin wondered, how do you know I awakened it? Your shadow has risen from 3 stars to 4.5. I couldn't possibly not notice. Right now, you are still safe, all thanks to Sadare's axe. Out of the 11 who experienced the explosive guiding energy, only you survived, the other 9 have fallen. Jin curiously asked, is there anyone else besides me? Is it your ancestor? Urake pointed to himself, declaring, there's one more, and that's me. Jean waved his hand dismissively. Turns out you're just like me. I'll go take a bath first. Urake frantically urged Gilly to remember these words. Gilly replied, I'm going to prepare food for the young master. Urake stood lost in the wind, feeling utterly alone. Meanwhile, the news of Jean's victory over the White Wolf tribe reached the two siblings. Annie could hardly believe that Jean was so powerful. She felt the White Wolf tribe was far too weak and suspected that Jean might be pretending. In contrast, the Tenor siblings were in a state of utmost worry. Jean was about to enter the final class, and it was inevitable that he would torment them. With this thought, the siblings felt a wave of despair wash over them. At that moment, Annie decided to lend a helping hand, offering them a slave from the final class to assist them in dealing with Jean. The Tenor siblings were instantly filled with joy. However, Annie wore a smile that held a secret. But if you fail, you'll have to face the consequences, my dear. Meanwhile, Jean had just finished bathing and was calculating his strength. Currently, he had achieved 4 stars in Qi guidance. To truly master the Qi guidance, one must achieve at least 6 stars in swordsmanship within 5 years. Only those with 6 stars are called sword masters, while those with 7 stars are regarded as true experts. Beyond 8 stars lies a significant leap. Among the 2 billion people on the continent, fewer than 100 have attained 9 or 10 stars. Moreover, there was another individual who surpassed the standard level, and that was Jean's father. Revered as the founding knight, Jean's ambition in this life was to surpass even his father. However, the pressing issue was that after entering the final class, he would have to confront the overwhelming presence of the Tenor siblings. The students in the beginner class were still young, their strengths relatively equal, allowing for smooth integration, but the supreme class was a realm for true warriors. Jean's personality allowed for no compromise, and now he had only one choice left, to dominate this supreme class with sheer strength. Today marked the day Jean officially joined the supreme class. Before advancing to the intermediate class, Dean would accompany him through the training of the supreme class. He sternly declared to everyone that from this point onward, power struggles would erupt, and they would belong to my faction. Thus, you will face bullying, but don't worry too much. Once I stabilize, no one will dare to harm you. However, before that happens, you must at least stick together in groups of 3, striving to avoid acting alone. Upon hearing this, everyone replied in unison, we understand. Soon after, on this very day, the instructor announced the arrival of new students and the rules for newcomers. Aside from killing, everything else can be resolved on your own. I will only teach you the ways of the sword. As if to gauge the strength of his peers, he suddenly roared, the voices in the supreme class are so sluggish. What have I always emphasized? The Lencade clan has no need for the weak. The echoes of his proclamation crashed like waves, suffusing the square with an overwhelming pressure. Jean sighed, feeling the provocation in the air. Instantly, his gaze shifted towards the Tona brothers amid the crowd. Beside them, a fierce-looking man captured Jean's attention. He had clearly reigned in the supreme class for a long time. There was no way the Tona brothers could have instigated this themselves. It had to be the doing of Sister Annie's people. Though they sought to eliminate Jean, he was determined to show them that they were utterly mistaken. With courage, Jean advanced towards the Tona brothers, causing them to shudder in fear. They could only console themselves with the thought of Sister Annie's support and tried to keep calm. Jean drew his long sword, and before anyone could react, he struck down directly onto the man's arm. This act left everyone stunned, even the man himself, who could hardly believe his eyes. Looking at his severed arm, a wave of excruciating pain washed over him, rendering him unable to stand, forcing him to kneel upon the ground. Jean sheathed his sword and commanded coldly, call for medical assistance. Immediately, the Tona brothers drew their swords. They demanded to know why Jean had acted so suddenly. But Jean paid them no mind. He pondered the name of the man. Do you know why I struck you? On one side, Tona, unwilling to let Jean be, raised his sword and pointed it directly at him. Are you looking down on us? Draw your swords. But Jean's cold gaze held a hint of mockery. Listen, I'm conversing with Kaken. If you wish to challenge me, I will be ready later. But for now, kindly be silent. Hearing this, the Tona brothers erupted in anger. He has attacked my trainee. And still, but suddenly, he panicked and covered his mouth with his hand. Jean, catching this, instantly wore a smug smile. So, he belongs to your faction? His glare was so lethal that I had to make a move. The onlookers were left bewildered. A thought struck. Was Jean preparing to ignite the ranking battle? The instructor smiled eerily, as though seeing through every move Jean made. Initially, the Tona brothers intended to quash Jean's momentum, but with just a word from Tona, Ka Jin had become a part of their force. Thus, Jin's actions were not merely a provocation but the beginning of a combat tradition for the Lenkade clan. He had made an exceptionally strategic move. Jin shouted to the crowd. Listen, I am Jin Lenkade. You may swing your swords at me or challenge me. But if anyone harbors hostility towards me, I will not hesitate to strike down. Just then, Jed suddenly called out to Jin. You're the 8-star veteran knight of the Lenkade clan. Do you think you can act so freely in my presence? The former general of the 8-star knights. Do you think you can act like this in front of me? Jin replied calmly. Indeed, for I am not opposing you, I am facing him. At this, a chilling aura of murderous intent surged from Jed as he raised his hand. A palpable pressure of deadly intent radiated from Jed's entire being. He wanted to convey to Jin, after hearing your response, I will decide whether to behead you or not. Yet, in the face of Jed's terrifying aura, Jin remained steadfast. You know that I am also a newcomer. Jin chuckled calmly. Because I cannot defeat you right now, otherwise I would have already made my move against you. You truly do not understand the meaning of life and death. If my encouragement of them displeases you, then you should take action against me. Why resort to beheading? Jin scoffed lightly, because I cannot defeat you yet. If I could, I would have already acted against you. You truly are unafraid of death? Do you think that because you are the heir of the clan leader, I would hesitate to kill you? Do not misunderstand. A stronger opponent cannot be tolerated. That is not the way of the Lenkade. Upon hearing this response, Jed smiled. Remember this moment. Today, you have encountered someone who truly belongs to the Lenkade clan. This boy has displayed our essence. Pour all your strength into this battle. Do not forget your nature. Starting tomorrow, begin your training. Remember this moment. Today, you have witnessed a true member of the Lenkade clan. This boy has clearly shown our essence. Commit all your energy to this battle. Do not forget your nature. Starting tomorrow, commence your training. They immediately dispersed on the spot. As they departed, Jin left the Tona brothers with a profound piece of advice. Though you may fear your elders more now. What of the future? Do not only look at the short term. Think more about the future before you act. It was an unwritten rule. Thus they could not arbitrarily create difficulties for Jin. What they could do was only to leverage the power of the pioneers to make Jin's tasks harder, thereby increasing the risk of his downfall. Difficult missions were typically assigned to others. This is an unspoken rule, so they cannot create difficulties for Jin on their own. The only thing they can do is to exploit their pioneering authority to increase the challenges Jin must face, thereby heightening the risk of his downfall. Difficult tasks are often assigned to the pioneers. When you receive a mission, you can step forward with confidence. This means that when you boldly venture into challenges, you are free to showcase all your strength. Jin suddenly realized that this was a magnificent opportunity for him. From now on, he could accumulate offensive power without any worries. The next morning, Jed led the two brothers Tona and Jin to a special training session. This was an exercise exclusively for the Lunged. Jin glanced at the two brothers Tona, who were battered and bruised beside him, looking as if they had just endured a brutal beating from the girls. This was a unique training regimen designed solely for the Lunged. Jin directed his gaze towards the two brothers Tona, their faces marred with injuries, clearly having just undergone a merciless battle with the girls. Then, Jed revealed to them that their clan possessed a form of invisible swordsmanship that defied all rules. This was what set the Lunged apart from other martial arts clans. When asked why, Jin replied that thanks to the unique qualities and sensory abilities of the Lunged clan, combined with their blessed bloodline, they possessed a robust physique that far exceeded the imagination of ordinary people, along with an extraordinarily keen perception of sword techniques. Jed announced that the upcoming exercise would be ridiculously simple. He handed the three of them a metal ball, referred to as the pure-sounding ball. The name stemmed from the fact that when struck, it would emit 3 different sounds. Immediately, he began to demonstrate for them. Suddenly, a piercing sound erupted, making everyone feel as though needles were pricking their skin. But when Jed produced the second sound, it was soft and melodious, like the song of a lark. It turned out that the sound varied depending on the force of the strike. If the hit was weak, the sound would be faint. Jin instantly deduced the nature of the training. It was a method designed to hone strength, willpower, and focus. Though it seemed simple, in reality, this was a unique exercise tailored to the extraordinary physique of the Lunged clan. Yet, he suspected that merely swinging a sword at the pure-sounding ball could not possibly be the secret training of the Lunged. However, the training was indeed well suited to the superhuman constitution of the Lenkade. Still, he felt uncertain if it merely involved striking a transparent ball. There would be no element of danger involved. It couldn't be right to call this the secret training of the Lencade. Yet, Jed raised his voice with a strange smile. There's one last sound. Jean suddenly recalled something, an ominous feeling swelling within him. He quickly turned and dashed towards the two brothers. Tona, quick. Lie down. Instantly, Jed unleashed a deafening arrow. Immediately, the surface of the ball appeared to crack. Just a moment later, a terrifying explosion engulfed the space. As the dust settled, in the terrified gazes of Jean and the others, Jed explained, as you can see, the third sound is the explosion. If the strike is too powerful, it will detonate. Now, let us commence the training session. This performance is, in fact, a kind of trial, but since Luna emerged unscathed, only they managed to escape safely. Jean, filled with curiosity, asked, how did Sister Luna avoid the explosion? Jed pondered for a moment, then spoke. You might be quite surprised to learn this. In truth, Luna did not evade the blast at all. She possesses extraordinary physical strength, so much so that she remained completely unharmed. As soon as he finished speaking, all three of them, including Jean, stood there in shock, unable to believe their ears. Afterwards, Jed instructed them to come every afternoon for special training. Meanwhile, in another location, Luna and her guardian were investigating the assassination of Jean that had occurred many years ago. The guardian revealed that, according to the latest intel, Meow and Annie were the two most suspicious suspects. However, Luna still felt uncertain about the two of them, because attacking children who had yet to leave Storm City was strictly forbidden by the Lencade clan. If their plans were discovered by their father, they would surely face death. Could it be that Jean had been mistaken or was lying? After all, Jean had only been 10 years old at the time, and he hadn't gathered any information over the past 5 years. Yet Luna's intuition told her that Jean was not lying. At that moment, Jean was exceedingly wary of him, not out of shyness, but because he sensed that his life was in danger. Luna felt an ominous portent drawing near. Investigate Meow and Annie thoroughly. Then, she inquired about Jean's recent training progress. Perhaps it was time for the new training she had assigned to Jean to bear fruit. Thinking of Jean's relentless improvement, a smile of pride illuminated Luna's face. It was truly fascinating to witness his continuous growth. The following afternoon, after 2.5 hours of training, Jean felt utterly exhausted from this special regimen, because if he could not control his strength well during light strikes, the deafening noise would give him an unbearable headache. He lost count of how many times he had vomited due to the intense pain. Jean thought this was merely a test of strength and endurance. But first, he needed to enhance the destructive power of his own energy, otherwise, he could not achieve his goal. Meanwhile, Jed quietly observed the three of them, although they all performed admirably. The standout was still the little one among them. There was a possibility that he would break Luna's record. Before long, the training extended into the evening, at which point the Tona brothers were completely drained. Although Jed appeared to tease the siblings, they had far surpassed his expectations. Truly, they were worthy descendants of the Lencade clan. What surprised him the most was Jean's talent. But why was he the youngest? If he had been born 10 years earlier, he would undoubtedly have become a significant figure within the Lencade clan. Reflecting on this, Jed felt a pang in his heart and sat down on the ground. 2.5 months later, the first mission for the elite class was announced. But when he read about the third mission, to eliminate the orc monster, the personnel list, the man could hardly believe his eyes. Only after confirming it again did he read the list. And this list contained 10 new students. Excluding Jean, even the Tona brothers were unable to fathom how such a daunting mission was entrusted to a group of newcomers. Just look at it. If even half of them managed to survive and return, it would be nothing short of a miracle. The towering man, once severed by Jean's blade, advised them to write their wills. The blonde one snickered, suggesting they plead for Jean's assistance. The other, unable to withstand their mockery, was pulled back by Misa just as he was about to retort. Misa, with a stern expression, warned him not to cause trouble. Otherwise, being injured before completing the mission would spell disaster. Yet they questioned the young master. Have you forgotten where this is? This is the Lencade clan. We must not only complete the mission but also return safely. Let us unleash our strength and strike them fiercely. Meanwhile, on the other side, during the special training session, Daytona had struck too hard, causing a massive explosion. Debris flew in every direction, hurtling straight towards Jean. In the decisive moment, Jean reacted in time, reluctantly blocking the attack. Reflecting on that fleeting instant, a glimmer of confidence ignited in his eyes, allowing him to perceive the trajectory of the flying shard with clarity. Like an arrow released, the path was unmistakably clear. Perhaps this was linked to Sister Luna's special training. If more shards were to come hurtling towards him, he would undoubtedly dodge them with precision. At that moment, Jed interrupted their conversation, announcing that the three of them had a new mission. The task assigned to the Tona brothers was to attend the banquet of the Beemont Empire. Upon hearing this news, the brothers felt as if they had just swallowed a fly. Jean surmised that this was the punishment their sisters had devised for them due to their previous failure, forcing the two siblings, who struggled with words, to partake in the social event of the Beemont Empire. Next came Jean's mission. However, Jed paused, slowly confirming the details of the task before continuing. Your mission is to assassinate Princess Teralis's lover, Acheron. At this revelation, even the Tona brothers could not hide their astonishment. For the labyrinth is a colossal tower standing resolutely amidst the western sea of the continent, unyielding to the dominion of the Lencade and Jippel clans. Meanwhile, Teralis is a top-tier powerhouse, akin to a demigod, known as the Deep Realm Spider. Should anyone dare to lay a hand on her lover, she would not hesitate to exact vengeance. Acheron currently resides in the forbidden land of Mamite, protected by members of a covert organization. The Tona brothers could hardly believe that such a formidable task had been assigned to Jean. For missions in the Mamite area are typically given to seasoned knights, not to Jean, who had only trained for 2.5 years. Jed also felt the weight of this mission and inquired if Jean believed he could accomplish it. Yet, Jean responded without hesitation, his resolve unwavering. Upon hearing his answer, Jed was taken aback. He had never expected Jean to agree so swiftly. Initially, he intended to suggest that if Jean felt the mission was unjust, he would speak to the leaders. Excellent. I admire your decisiveness. You three will set off in 2 days. As Jean prepared to leave, the Tona brothers suddenly called him back, advising Jean that if anything went awry, he should reveal the identity of the Lencade clan. That way, no one would dare to lay a hand on him. It's rare for you to worry about me like this. The Tona brothers firmly insisted that there was no need to concern themselves with Jean. They were merely afraid that he would fall at the hands of others, as they could not bear the shame. But Jean unexpectedly drew forth his long sword. He swung the sword powerfully forward. As the Tona brothers anxiously braced for an explosion, a pure and melodious sound rang out. Jean turned back, wearing a confident smile. Brothers, think wisely before I return. In the end, choose between me or the sisters. Jed watched Jean's retreating figure, suddenly serious as he advised the two brothers that unless they possessed overwhelming strength to crush Jean, they should never confront him, for he harbored a profound intuition. In just 10 days, Jean would stand atop the pinnacle of this continent. In 2 days, Misa and the others would come to bid him farewell. To avoid revealing the identity of the Lencade clan, Jean had specially altered his hair color and attire. He had inquired about the mission, but they wore expressions of deep sorrow. Jean asked if something unfortunate had occurred, but Misa forced a cheerful demeanor, assuring Jean that they were fine, merely wanting to say goodbye before he set off. Hearing this, Jean encouraged everyone to keep their spirits high, for this was not the last time they would meet. Losses during a mission are inevitable, no amount of anxiety can change that. Therefore, focus all your energy on the current task, for I will certainly return safely. Jean patted Bellup on the shoulder, encouraging him to give his all. Until we meet again. After bidding everyone farewell, Jean instructed Urakai to protect them. Urakai confidently replied that there was no need for worry. But Jean, known as the Great Black, interjected, "Do not draw attention, and don't stand out too much." Urakai felt frustrated being interrupted by Jean. Gritting his teeth, Urakai reminded Jean to be cautious as well, not to become complacent just because he had changed his appearance. Jilly also emphasized to Jean that caution was essential. Once mounted, Jean smiled gently. "I will bring you a gift." After receiving the assassination mission, Jean ventured into the forbidden land of Mamite. This was the gathering place for the most despicable of criminals, a realm teeming with nefarious outlaws lurking in the shadows. Jean tossed a silver coin, calling for a drink and food from the tavern owner. Nearby, a rogue, noticing Jean's youth yet sensing his formidable presence, decided to teach him the rules of this place. He spoke with a fierce tone, commanding Jean to kneel and lick his feet. But just as his words hung in the air, a sharp dagger cruelly glided across his throat, blood gushing forth like a river. Once everything settled, Jean, with an impassive expression, tossed the dagger onto the table and impatiently questioned the innkeeper. How long must he wait? The surrounding crowd was stunned by this unexpected spectacle. Yet, moments later, laughter erupted, mocking the fate of the hulking man, as if he were merely a tiny ant crushed beneath a boot. This filled Jean with a vivid sense of the madness lurking within their souls. It reminded him of the lessons his master taught in a previous life. To gain recognition from the outlaws here, one must demonstrate strength and dominance. Whether in this life or the last, his master remained Jean's steadfast support, and he hoped for a chance to repay this kindness. After a while, the innkeeper brought Jean food and drink, assuring him that no poison would be added, for poisoning was a taboo here. Noticing Jean's discomfort, he inquired if Jean had any relatives present. Jean replied that it had nothing to do with him. Then, he pulled out a gold coin. He asked the innkeeper for news. "Is there a woman named Histel here?" The innkeeper pondered for a moment before shaking his head, confirming he had not heard that name. Jean didn't hold much hope and simply requested the innkeeper to recommend a place free of snakes or insects. The innkeeper informed Jean that there was only one such place, the Moonlight Hotel in the west of the city. All the nobles of Mamite resided there, and thus no one dared to cause trouble in that vicinity. Hearing this, Jean immediately headed towards the Moonlight Hotel. Acheron was a young master who had never faced hardship from childhood. With his temper, he could not possibly endure the filth of the surroundings. Jean suspected he was hiding there. Sure enough, as Jean stepped into the Moonlight Hotel, he found Acheron. Acheron, with a fury like a tempest, was shouting at his bodyguards, demanding they bring him his belongings at once. He declared that if they did not, he would not remain there for another second. Yet, despite Acheron's rage, the bodyguards stood firm as a fortress, resolutely upholding their duty. Acheron paid them no mind, stubbornly threatening that he would not easily forgive the bodyguards later. The bodyguards, strong yet powerless, sighed in frustration, glancing at their comrades behind them before suddenly delivering a punch that knocked him out cold, while secretly wishing to give Acheron a dose of poison to make him vanish. He could not comprehend why adults allowed such people to exist. With that, he stepped forward, carrying Acheron back to his room. Jean surmised that these two bodyguards were undoubtedly sixth-tier warriors, powerful and valiant. Although assassinating Acheron was as easy as flipping a hand, the real challenge lay in how to retreat safely afterward. Moreover, the use of poison was a strict taboo for Mammoth. If I dared to break the rules, it would undoubtedly stir a great storm. Jean was gathering all his thoughts, seeking a way to assassinate Acheron under the luminous moonlight. Suddenly, he slammed his hand on the table, devising a bold plan that would cover the sky and cross the sea. At that moment, a silver-haired girl, accompanied by several bodyguards, headed towards the Moonlight Well, intending to coincidentally meet Jean. But as they hurried to the scene, the sky abruptly erupted into a fierce storm of thunder and lightning. A colossal bolt of lightning struck down towards the Moonlight Well, a sight so shocking that it left everyone frozen in place. The girl from Nom Nom Island, her eyes wide with confusion, exclaimed, "It seems I forgot to check the calendar today." The cause of this chaos was Jean's plan, to recklessly unleash magic upon the Moonlight Well. With 4-star magical power and supportive tools, he could achieve the strength of a 6-star sorcerer, and Jean's innocent appearance was the perfect facade. No one could suspect that a mere 15-year-old boy could be a 6-star sorcerer. When using the cloaking device, he left no trace behind. Thus, Jean decided to summon lightning, creating an atmosphere as if a terrorist attack were unfolding. He began to cast the spell of atmospheric summoning, and immediately, the room fell into a state of nothingness. Moments later, he raised his hand, gathering the energy of lightning. In the next instant, Jean was enveloped in dazzling bolts of electricity. As his summoning incantation ended, a massive bolt of lightning tore through the air, the power of thunder wreaking havoc on everything around. Outside the hotel, witnessing this spectacle, Celestia stood frozen, suspecting that someone within the Moonlight Well had made an enemy of a high-ranking sorcerer. But it could also be aimed at the secret palace, as among them were 6 members of the palace and the princess's lover. Celestia immediately rallied her team to plunge into the wreckage. Although they were not particularly concerned about whether Acheron lived or died, they had to confirm the safety of the palace members. Just then, the sky roiled once more, and another massive bolt of lightning struck down, sending those inside the hotel into a frenzy of panic. As the bodyguards prepared to charge in, Celestia hurriedly called out, "Wait!" A gigantic bolt of lightning, as if bearing the power of a 7-star spell, thundered down, turning the entire hotel into a heap of ruins. Celestia stood still, silently pondering that this might be the final blow. Looking at the debris of the hotel, where clouds of dust billowed up, he could only pray for the safety of the members. Amidst the chaos, a battered warrior stumbled out from the wreckage, looking disheveled. Jean had also been affected by the onslaught, but fortunately, Thanks to the pendant from Sister Luna, he had not sustained serious injuries. Jean began searching for traces of Ataran. If he was still alive, now was the best time to strike. Suddenly, a shadow appeared before him. Celestia approached Jean with surprise. Her eyes filled with curiosity. Unexpectedly, "Is there someone my age in Mama too? Are you alright? It's best to leave here quickly." Just then, a palace guard arrived to report, "Miss, the members are only lightly injured, but still alive." Hearing this, Celestia turned her head and commanded the guard, "Very well. If they are still protecting Acheron, then eliminate him immediately. If you find the sorcerer, capture him at once." Jean assessed the silver-haired girl before him, realizing she was the daughter of the princess of the secret palace. It seemed she had come to deal with the matter concerning Acheron. Thus, even if Acheron was fortunate enough to survive, he would find it hard to escape death. Jean now had to calculate a way to escape. To avoid being recognized by Celestia, he tousled his hair to obscure his face, planning to blend into the chaotic crowd and flee. But just at that moment, Celestia raised her sword high and declared to the crowd below, "I am Celestia, daughter of the princess of the secret palace. From now on, the Moonlight Well shall be under the management of the secret palace. Anyone who opposes this will be considered an enemy of the palace." These words immediately stirred a commotion among the crowd. Some voiced their dissent, claiming this was not a place for the palace to intervene. They had been deceived. Hearing this, Celestia's expression darkened. In an instant, she transformed into a stream of light, gliding over the blade of her sword, freezing everything in her path with frost. Celestia's gaze was icy, radiating the deadly aura of the palace. "When will it be your turn to criticize? Until the sorcerer is found, none of you should think of leaving here." But right after that, Celestia spotted Jean and unhappily asked him, "Why haven't you left yet?" Jean feigned fear, claiming he was injured in the leg. Hearing this, Celestia took out a box of medicine. "You have survived this terrible attack. How fortunate. I shall personally apply the medicine for you. This is the blessing you have accumulated over 8 lifetimes. If you have the chance, make sure to repay me well." After that, Jean smiled and waved goodbye to her. But in the very next moment, Jean's expression changed dramatically. The assassination mission had been accomplished. At the same time, Misa and the others were fiercely eliminating the orcs. Orcs are powerful monsters that operate in packs. With their strength, they could only be destroyed. Yet now, they had vanquished 18 of them, as they encountered only solitary orcs. This instilled more confidence in everyone. They needed to eliminate just 7 more, and they could return safely and avenge those who mocked them. Misa felt fortunate that Jean had received the protection of the divine, thus, they too would share in the blessing. But no one knows that everything has been orchestrated silently by Ula-K since before. Just 2.5 days ago, all the orcs in this region were summoned by his command. Ula-K ordered them to act alone from today onwards. Anyone daring to travel together shall pay the price with their lives. The orcs receiving the order growled, "Sisarke." Then, Ula-K transformed into a small black cat, muttering in complaint, "This little brat is sure to bring me endless troubles. He is the one bound by a 1,000-year contract. So what is so special about him, daring to command me like this? When I get home, I will definitely make him buy me new comic books." But just at that moment, a loud explosion echoed from afar, causing Ula-K to immediately become alert. He sensed a colossal power approaching. He could not comprehend where that being had emerged from, yet it seemed he would not return easily. Ula-K raised his hand, summoning a mass of dark energy. Instantly, he surged downward, creating a barrier of energy enveloping the entire area. Belip recognized the anomaly immediately but only felt the sky darkening more than before. Just waiting for this, Ula-K materialized. He flew towards a massive shape. "Who dares to let their aura leak without my permission?" Upon closer inspection, he discovered it was not a living creature, but a colossal tomb from an ancient era. Yet, 2,000 years ago, it was the dragon clan that had annihilated all of them. Moreover, these enormous tombs only appeared beside the graves of the deceased gods. Why have they emerged here? Whatever the reason, it left Ula-K feeling discontent. He opened his mouth, focusing dark energy. In the blink of an eye, energy swirled like a tempest within his mouth. At the same moment, the giant sensed danger and immediately assumed a defensive stance. In the next instant, a tremendous and powerful stream of energy erupted forth. Immediately, it engulfed the giant. That colossal form was torn to shreds by the dragon's blade in the blink of an eye. Ula-K flapped his wings back to the ground, reverting to human form, approaching the giant while pondering why it had appeared here. He suspected that everything was related to the Gipur clan. After all, what conspiracy lies behind this incident? After careful consideration, Ulat K decided not to say a word to Jean. If peril were to strike, he would be the one to protect Jean. Just let Jean grow for another 10 years, and he will be strong enough to confront the Gipure clan. Simultaneously, in another dim room, a worried figure paced back and forth until a shape appeared, causing the portly man to exclaim in panic. Master Li Tui Kai, something is wrong. The giant I created has been destroyed. He is the famous shapeshifter, Bubar. The man standing before him was the deputy commander of Kim Gi-lo. Bishukan, I heard this news and came to investigate immediately. The one who took down that giant is the Long, also known as An Long. Hearing this, Bubar was shaken. Could it be that our plans have been discovered by the Dragon Clan so quickly? We cannot affirm it yet, but this is clearly a warning. I will meet with the members of the Gipure clan. The scene shifts as Jean completed his mission flawlessly, returning from Mamet without a scratch. However, his strength was questioned by the other members. They had heard that on the day Jean undertook his mission, a sorcerer unexpectedly attacked the hotel where the assassination target was located. Therefore, they believed that Jean's success in this mission was purely a stroke of luck. With his 4-star swordsmanship, he surely could not have survived otherwise. But does it really matter? He is the young master of the Lencade clan. That is something people like us cannot even compare to. Just then, Jean suddenly stepped forward. The trainees were instantly alarmed. Did Jean overhear their conversation? Jean calmly spoke. What a pity. I heard everything. Kakin, how is your arm? Upon hearing this, Kakin's face turned ashen, recalling sarcastically. Thank you for your swift intervention. The medical staff said reconnecting it should be quite easy. Really? It seems you are discussing an interesting topic. Indeed, for we, the lowly ones, only dare to speak ill of you in hushed tones. Young master of the Lencade clan, please forgive us. Yet Jean insisted there was no need for apologies, for he was not the true pioneer. In truth, he is not even their superior. But Kakin displayed arrogance. With your status, dealing with me would be but a mere word. Jean replied, you truly irritate me. Kakin immediately stood up. In my eyes, you are merely a fortunate fool who completed his mission. You fundamentally cannot earn my recognition. Jean's expression turned cold. It seems you have misunderstood me. It is not your mocking words that disgust me, but you, as one of the strongest 5-star knights of the final class. Yet you can only speak ill of me from behind my back. Jean often criticized Karkin. I have said it before, you can challenge me anytime. Hearing this, Karkin immediately retorted, are you certain? Upon receiving a confirming answer from Jean, he drew his sword, swinging it fiercely toward Jean, releasing the long-suppressed fury within him. Jean felt the power behind the strike, a surge of fear rising within him. Indeed, Karkin's strength was formidable, yet compared to the enemies he would soon face, it was insignificant. But just then, Karkin unexpectedly lunged toward Jean, striking down with a powerful momentum. Jean could only lift his sword in defense. Karkin seized the opportunity, delivering a powerful kick that sent Jean flying. At that moment, a flash of light erupted, and a strange feeling surged within him. With astonishing speed, Jean dodged Karkin's attack, just like the day before when he was attacked by the iron block. He discerned the tricks in Karkin's strikes. Faced with Karkin's frenzied slashes, Jean grew more agile, inciting further anger in Karkin. Jean was confident that in the next 3 rounds, he would end the battle, for he had seen through all of Karkin's techniques. In response to Jean's arrogance, Karkin shouted furiously, you truly do not know what fear is. Immediately, his attacks became more frenzied than ever. Like a storm sweeping everything away, he aimed to overturn Jean's lightweight boat. However, after just 3 moves, Jean swiftly glided beneath Karkin's feet, channeling his power into the sword, and with a mighty sweep from below, he severed Karkin's blade in an instant. Karkin stood there, his face filled with disbelief. Have I been deceived? Has your swordsmanship truly reached 5 stars? Jean coldly regarded him. I never claimed to be limited to 4 stars, you simply do not understand me. I never fight without confidence. At that moment, the Tona brothers, hearing the clash of battle, rushed over. When they beheld the scene, their hearts surged with turmoil. What is happening? Could it be that Jean has defeated Karkin? Jean offered no further explanation, leaving only a chilling remark. There's no need to panic. Before departing the scene, leaving the 2 brothers standing there, unable to regain their composure. In no time, Karkin reported this matter to Jean's 2 sisters. They could hardly believe it. Questioning Karkin once more, Jean is only 15, and he has already reached 5 stars in swordsmanship? Karkin bowed his head and replied. Everyone present witnessed it. Jean's strength truly exceeds 5 stars. Upon receiving this confirmation, Annie remarked, "Is this the manifestation of our power?" Hearing this, Mia, with her sharp, murderous gaze, declared, "Not just against us, but against the entire clan. When assigning the next task to Jean, make sure to include our people. We must leave him with no path of retreat." The news of Jean's victory over Karkin spread like wildfire throughout the clan, leaving everyone in disbelief. In the entire history of the Lunkade clan, only 3 individuals achieved 5 stars at the age of 15, their ancestor, their father, and the eldest sister, Luna. However, the eldest sister Luna was not particularly keen on the position of clan leader. Thus their brother Joashua became the top heir. With their mother's support, his current position was incredibly stable. Yet, Jean's powerful rise threatened to shake this foundation. Their father only expressed acknowledgement towards Luna, while the others remained unnoticed. He believed Joashua lacked the qualities to lead, and thus always longed for a successor who could replace him. Therefore, it was certain that their father would soon issue new directives for Jean. Although he was unsure of what his father would decree, Jean could firmly assert 2 things. First, he would be tested to see if he could transcend the chasm of age, for he was younger than nearly all the other heirs. Second, his father would shield him, ensuring that he would not be tormented by his older siblings before facing the challenge. For Jean was the only one brave enough to rise after their ancestors. And as this news